We are doing target 1B. This is day 2, and we are writing and solving inequalities, which is very, very similar to writing equations. So if you got that, you should not have a problem with this. So we will start with some vocabulary. An inequality is an open sentence that contains one of the symbols, either less than or equal to, or greater than or equal to. The solution of an inequality is a number that, when substituted for the variable in an inequality, results in a true statement. So if you went back and you found your solution and then you plugged it back in for the variable, it would be true. So let's start with some practice. Solve the following inequality for x. And we have 6 plus 2x is less than or equal to 18. Okay, so initially we're going to solve it like an equation. We have 6 plus 2x is less than or equal to 18. We're going to subtract 6 from both sides since we have a positive 6. And remember, we want the variable by itself. And that's going to result in 2x is less than or equal to 12. Now, normally you would just, if this was an equation, you just divide both sides by 2 like normal and you'd be done. Okay, the little trick here is that if the number was negative, if this 2 was a negative 2, when you did that, the sign would flip. Okay, so that's only with multiplication or division. Okay, not with the addition or subtraction. The sign doesn't change then. Only with multiplication and division. So this will be something that could trip you up. So please make a special note of this. But in this case, the 2 is positive. So when we divide both sides by 2, we end up with x is less than or equal to 6. Okay, the inequality sign doesn't change. All right, moving on to an example. Solve the following inequality for x again. But now we have negative 4 minus 4x is less than or equal to 24. So we start with the inequality. And since we have a negative 4, we are going to add 4 to both sides, which is going to give us negative 4x is less than or equal to 28. Okay, and what do we do next? We divide both sides by negative 4. But since we're dividing by a negative, the sign is going to change. So take that negative 4x divided by negative 4 and 28 divided by negative 4. It's going to give you x is greater than or equal to negative 7. Notice how this sign here flipped because we divided by the negative 4. So again, pay attention to that. Be careful when you're dividing or multiplying by a negative number. Okay? Next practice problem. You have to write an inequality and solve. Okay, so we have a word problem here. Admission to the circus is $8.50. Each freak show costs you 50 cents. You have $14 to spend at the circus on shows and admission. Okay, I'll ignore this part here. Okay, we want you to write an inequality that represents how many shows you can see. So again, we're going to set up this inequality just like you would an equation. Okay, we see this word each. Okay, so that tells us that what follows it, that 50 cents, is part of the same sentence. So that means that 50 cents is going to get the variable. So we know that that's going to be 0.5x. Okay, we know that admission is $8.50. So we know we have to pay that up front. That doesn't change. That's our constant. Okay, and then the $14, that's our largest number. Okay, so that's going to go on the other side. Normally, if this was an equation, you just put the equal sign and you'd be done. But in this case, it's an inequality, so we're not going to have an equal sign. So what do we do? Okay, so if I write it so that it's like this, and I say $8.50 plus 50 cents times x is less than or equal to 14, does that make sense? Yes, it does, because we can't spend more than $14. So that means that this amount has to be less than or equal to the 14, which is what I have right there. Now we're going to solve it just like we did in the previous example. Okay. Again, the only thing that's different is that you use an inequality sign instead of an equal sign. That's the only step that's different. And to figure out which one you use, you just need to make sure you understand the question. So read it and make sure that this makes sense. Say it out loud to yourself. $8.50 plus 50 cents per ride has to cost less than or equal to the $14 that I have. If you accidentally did, it has to cost more than the $14 I have, you'd say, oh, wait, well, that doesn't make sense. So, But anyway, we're going to solve this just like we did in the previous example. Start off with $8.50 plus 50 cents times x is less than or equal to 14. After you subtract 850 from both sides, you would have 0.50x is less than or equal to 550. And then you would divide both sides by 550. So here, subtract 850, and that's again both sides. So that's how we get to this. Here, we're going to divide 0.50, and again, both sides, which is going to give you x is less than or equal to 11. But that's not our answer, because this is a word problem, so they're looking for a word answer. So you would say you can ride 11 rides or less, not or more, or less. So let's do an example problem. Admission to the fair costs $5.50. Each ride costs you 65 cents. You have $12 to spend at the fair on rides and admission. Write an inequality that represents the number of rides you can ride, and then solve it. So again, set it up like normal. 65 cents, that's for each ride. So that's going to get the variable. 550 is our admission, so that's our constant or our base amount. And $12 is the biggest number, so that's going to go on the other side. And then just solve it like normal. Subtract 550 from both sides, which is going to give you 0.65x is less than or equal to 6.50. Divide both sides by 0.65, and you get x is less than or equal to 10. So you can ride, that's wrong, 10 rides or less. Easy enough, but it can get confusing. So if you have questions, make a note of it now and ask me when you see me. So, tips: study, ask questions, and study some more. We are going to spend some time reviewing for the quiz, so make sure you take good notes because you can use them on the quiz. And if there's anything you don't understand, you need to ask me because just taking notes isn't always enough. Sometimes you need to make sure you understand everything. All right, have a good one.